done in the 1870s, they still do it that way today. It's kind of a cool museum to attend. So started by a man who thought that we needed, for farmers, some sort of a collective for things like learning about the newest technology, getting product to market. We're at a time when robber barons were overpowered and it was really difficult to get your product to market. And the Grange helped break down those ties with the railroad so that we could get free trade for farmers. Today, that kind of translates into an advocacy legislative organization where we write resolutions on anything from community-based needs to national laws that might be needed, and we support or deny with our lobbyists that we have on the state and national levels. One of the coolest things about Grange, from my personal idea, is that none of the rules come from the top down. They all start at the community level. Every single policy that we have started by a member idea through a resolution or an initiative that they pushed up to the top. And there are no other organizations that I know of in the fraternal world that work like that. So to be a member, you only have to be 13 and a half and a day. That's one day closer to 14 than 13, right? And so children were allowed because children were put to work on a farm too, yes? So they had just as much say and vote as their parents. It is also, I'm not sure if the first or one of the first organizations to have equal votes for women. So Oliver Kelly gathered up 6 other men who were fraternal members, Oddfellows, Masons. They all belonged to something else. And his niece, Carolyn Hall, said, I think you ought to let women be involved too. So to form a new Grange, you need 13 members, and at least half of them need to be women to make it somewhat balanced. So that's kind of a cool thing too. We had 1870 women voting with their husbands or other men, where that couldn't happen in regular society until much, much later, correct? So we have this farmers organization. We call it ritual, the degree work. And what's interesting to me, there are 7 Masons have degrees. I'm sure you've all heard of that, so we have them as well. Ours are based on the farm. So you have the first degree in the spring. Oh, I'm gonna mess it all up, but one of them is the fall, one's the summer, and then the winter. And each stage is a different stage of planting, as well as applying that to your personal lives. So like fostering good relationships, trimming out the bad seed, enjoying your harvest at the end when all is done. So that's kind of the basics of Grange. Our degree work started with 7 and then went backwards. So 7 is based on the Aleutian mysteries coming out of a completely different country at a time when the king of that land said, none of that, that's not part of the king's religion, you need to knock that off. So it came here with one of our founders. And then the rest of the ritual is, like I said, based on the farm, but there's sprinkling of like a biblical text in there as well. So in Orangevale, we were founded in 1910, and the very first hall was in Cable Park, I believe underneath the gas station. Is there still a gas station in here?
The Orangevale Clubhouse.
Yeah. And when it blew up, we moved to where we are now. The very first president was a man named J.L. Patterson, and I have the list of original officers here. Just reading through some of the minutes, I've been trying to transcribe them. Some of the fun things are they were still on gas lamps. They would come to a meeting and nobody would have enough gas one night. So they were all in the dark until a neighbor was able to bring some in so they could actually see each other. But they arranged to get, all that stuff they had to build from scratch. And then I learned that at some point there was a place they called the Grove, and it was like a dance floor or a dance hall, and I wish I knew where it was. Perhaps somebody in the History Museum does know?
It was near Roberts.
Near Roberts School. And they would just have like big park open to the public parties. So what are some of the fun things? Let's see, we found, in the minutes, I found records of they wanted to try to start a cemetery. It doesn't look like that took off. One of the members is responsible for the library's existence and getting, she did it out of her home for a while. Her name's in here somewhere. People know it. But she did it out of her house for a while until it grew big enough to become like a proper library. But that started by a Grange member. And the first high school in the region was organized by a Grange member. They had a relative who was on the school board who helped them get a high school founded. And I'm having trouble finding the names of things because they just talk about its existence, but not like what they called it. So I don't know addresses and names, just that they did it. I would love to know what you want to know about Grange, because 1873 to present is quite a long time. What do you want to know?
Only the goody stuff.
Only the goody stuff. In Orangevale, and let's see, so my grandparents came to Orangevale with Aerojet coming in, so like late 50s, early 60s, and they got married and drove west on the same day or the day after, and then brought my grandmother's parents with, and so they went to Inglewood first. My mom was born in Inglewood, then they came up here for Aerojet. So that's how we got here, and we've been here ever since. And so I'm the fourth generation in my family to belong. So in my memory of the Grange, I recall we used to do a carnival, not like powwow, but the carnival. We brought frog jumping contests and pie eating contests and all that stuff. We had Andy Kaufman and the giant African frogs, kind of like they do at Calaveras County Fair. We did it here. Did that for like 3 years. My dad did that. He brought a Mark Twain impersonator to the Delta King, and we did frog jumping there. My parents are very involved people. Do you remember DARE, when DARE kind of came around in the 80s? They were running that program for Grange here. So I remember a story about a kid hit on his bike on Hazel. So my parents arranged a reflective tape organization on bikes for kids. Like, that was a Grange project. So anytime that my parents heard about a thing, Grange did it, because that's what we were connected to. Ronald McDonald knows my mom personally because of the DARE. We would do what do you call it? Speech writing contest or a story writing contest for elementary school kids, and they would get to present them at the Grange, and Ronald McDonald would give them an award. That was a Grange event. So we've been involved in all kinds of things like that. The fireworks booth we did for a great many years, setting off fireworks down in the meadow, and I hope someday we can do that again. COVID kind of messed that up for us. So the Grange is about trying to make our community better, whatever that means to your community. If it means we need a library or a high school, or it means we need more stoplights on Greenback Lane, Grange has been involved in more ways than I could even guess to tell you about. There's a question?
Go ahead and finish. I actually, not a question, but I want to interject maybe a common memory of the Little House on the Prairie was where I first heard the word Grange, which was the Walnut Grove Grange. Mm-hmm. All of the farmers in town met there and had their regular meetings, and I always just assumed that it was like a conglomerate where they all shared their skills in farming and whatnot. And I lived up in Paradise for a while, and there's an active Grange in Dayton, which is down a little in the flatlands near Chico. So.
Yeah, there's a few in the Butte area. So we are in, I believe, 36 of the 50 states. Some of them have honorary, like Alaska has a Grange, but it's just kind of an honorary Grange. There's Potomac #1 in Washington, D.C. that's not affiliated with anything else. They don't get a vote, but they're like an honorary Grange as well. See, in the fun little history, so there was a time when we were worried about spies and like government spies especially like in the robber baron era. So we have things like secret passwords and handshakes and even signs to like bring attention to yourself out in public. Like, hey, I think this guy is trying to hammer me for info. I need help, come help me. There's signs and symbols to share that. And I don't do it on camera, but they're kind of cool. So I talked about the degree work. We have, if you come to one of our meetings, we have a salutation that we give at every meeting, kind of like, the Girl Scouts have their 3 fingers. It's 4 signs, and the last one is our voting sign, so we'll always vote in the affirmative or negative with, the 4th sign of the order, which stands for, the whole 4 is a good patron, places faith in God, nurtures hope, dispenses charity, and is noted for fidelity. And that's kind of the credo we all try to live by. Grange is meant to be nonpartisan, although we do have political because we're a legislative organization, but our discussions are lively and surprisingly productive, even though we have people who feel both ways. You come to a national or a state Grange convention, they can go on for a while, but there's always a common ground of we just want to care for each other. Even if we don't agree about how to get there, we can have a good discussion, which is nice. So I grew up seeing a different political view than probably most people get to see, because I see those conversations can happen in a positive way. It's just different in a Grange way. So you have friends all across the country. My best friend in New Jersey. I got another in Montana. My nephew in Montana. They're all over the country. I say I've got my classmates and my Grange friends. I'm like, those are my people all over, right? What do I talk about? Yes.
How is it that it's not in all 50 states? Is it a geographic kind of area that wasn't as interested or something? Or?
It's much more heavy on the eastern side where there's much more dense. You've got to kind of across the Midwest, things get a little more spread out. You have to have, I believe it's 4 Granges in a state to have a state Grange. We just formed one in Georgia, so I think they've got 2 now. Nevada had a couple.
So
It's
Rhode
just,
Island would be out.
I think they do have, like, they're surprisingly a lot. Maryland has 7. So it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just about density and what the population is there. Oliver Kelly did a lot. He was a traveler. Like, think about 1870s. You're getting around maybe on the train, maybe on a horseback. Who knows how you're getting there? Maybe the really slow way on a boat. He was off of the river, so maybe that was a way he got around. But he was selling the vision of an organization of collaboration to fellow farmers. David.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So the Grange started around the Civil War, and the South was not interested in having any Granges. So if you look at the Granges, they all went from above on the north and sort of all the way up to California. But any of the South during the war, they didn't want anything to do with the Granges. That's why there's really no Granges down in the South, other than the one that just started now.
Yeah, I think we've got 2 in Tennessee, the new one in Georgia. I don't think I've heard of anything, like, there's North Carolina. I can't think I've heard of anything in, like, Alabama area. There are some in Texas. So, yeah, there's not a lot in the South. And overall, kind of across all organizations, not just the Grange, membership is dwindling pretty quickly. There was a documentary done a couple of years back called Join or Die. I recommend you check it out. It's on Netflix. It's talking about the loss of membership in organizations, but people still desperately need to belong to something. COVID kind of taught us being by ourselves isn't always that fun. But they formed a whole bunch of their own communities, like maybe a biking club or a running club or a garden club, to belong to something and not necessarily knowing there are organizations out there they could belong to now, like Grange or Kiwanis or Lions or a history project. People just started new ones instead of joining existing ones. So we are dwindling out, looking for ways to bring in new membership. Sadly, a lot of our meetings are really quite dull. They're business meetings, just voting and getting things done. But it's what we plan to do at those meetings that make it fun, like breakfast or community events, organizing to go do big day of service, all those kinds of things that we do after a meeting is what makes the draw. But people got to come into the meeting so that we have something to work on. Yeah. I can talk more about secret stuff, but not here.
So how many Granges are there in the state of California? Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure the current number. I know we have about 150 people come to our state session. Each Grange gets 2 delegates, and that's not all of the Granges represented. So I'd say I think there's at least 100. I wish I could ask my president right now. I'd tell you. Our state president is really quite good at remembering all the details of things. Some other cool history is there's the orange trees in California in Riverside were brought here by a Grange member, by William Saunders, who was one of the first secretaries of agriculture of the United States. And he's one of our 7 founders, 8 founders if you count Carolyn. And so they're responsible for bringing the navel orange to California, which eventually made it up here as well. So that's Grange, brought oranges to California. Yeah.
Why are there secrets?
So there's secrets because of the robber baron thing. We wanted to make sure that if you came to at the time, you had to have a password to get in. You had to know the salutation to get in because you had to prove you were a member. We don't have that problem so much these days, but at the time there was a lot of worry about they didn't want us fighting them, the rich people that had the railroads, that had the market share. We were a threat to that because we were organizing on our own, and they needed that to stop, so they would try to sneak in. And so the secrets are about keeping those people out. We have something in our obligation about not supporting for membership a person we believe to be improper, which I think was kind of like that, somebody who was coming in for not so positive gain, not for the community, but for themselves, where we want to organize for the community and for each other, not just for us. So the secrets aren't as important now. The degree work is still kind of secret, and the other stuff is just sort of lost to history. We know about it, but we don't really talk about it.
If you want more members, you should be more transparent.
Yeah, and so like the signs and symbols, they're more like tradition than they are like secret, but I still can't do them on camera. Yes.
You grew up in the Grange organization, correct?
Yes.
So would you share some memories you have from being a child and maybe some of the events that you helped with or participated when you were 13, 6 months and one day yourself, for example?
I remember joining my local Grange as soon as I was old enough. And then I joined the state and national all within, because our state convention is usually October, national in November. I was a national member by November. We have something called a sign-a-song contest, which is kind of cool. It's exposure to ASL and to the hearing community, not deaf community, but like hard of hearing words, Christina. Teaching people about the risks of losing your hearing. And so we do sign a song. So I learned a couple of songs. I got to compete with those. So I can sign for you in C Sign, Good Friend by Kenny Rogers. And in ASL, I can sign for you I Can See Clearly Now by Gladys Knight. Those are the two that I learned. They're super fun. We still do that today. And so we have a national session contest. There's also a speech contest. And those are meant to help public speaking, to help me stand here and speak to you, even though I'm terribly unprepared today. So if it weren't for Grange, I wouldn't be able to stand here at all. I'd be terrified to talk to you all. I've gotten to meet so many people all around the country. My favorite local memory might be the frog jumping contest. That was super fun to get to just be a part of that. And because my dad was in charge, like I was really a part of that. They're the ones that brought the fireworks booth here the first time, and then the bakers took it on and owned it for such a long time. I think it's just like all of that community service stuff is what I remember the most. As far as being in a meeting, I remember being chased around the hall by one of the old fogies who was not happy that kids were running all over the place, you know. He was great. He was one of our presidents at one point, J.R. Rogers. Maybe somebody here knows him. He died when I was, I don't know, probably about 8, young. So I just grew up on the hall. I remember a few construction projects at the hall, like tearing down the old tile so we could put in the drop ceiling. I was there for that with big, long poles when you're little bitty. It was quite a project. Yeah. I don't know. What else you want to know?
When can the fireworks come back?
That is a great question. Like the challenge with fireworks, for those who don't know, is they actually have a limit of how many booths they can put in a region. And we dropped out of it just after COVID, and it's kind of hard to get back on that list because there's other people ahead of you. But also, the last couple of years, they've not had enough product. So my hope is that even if we don't get a booth back, if we can get back on the list to get product, because they gave us the product to show, because it was advertising for them, right? So my hope is that maybe we can make that happen again, to at least do the Meadow Show.
Yes, well, this is what I remembered. Then you could go and see what they had
Mhm.
in the other booths.
Yeah.
And what blew up in what way.
Right.
What you like the best.
Like that one was way better than I thought.
I'm gonna get that one when I go to the TNT booth or wherever you go. right?
Yeah, so my hope is to at least get back on that list, so that we can at least do the meadow show, because people ask for it and it's really fun.
I think it's great for the kids.
And you bring a picnic,
Yeah.
come sit in the meadow for a couple hours. It's great fun. So I would love to do that again. If there are other community things that you guys think of that you need an organization to sponsor, like let us know, talk to David, we'll arrange it.
And when you said the bakers,
Mhm.
the fireworks,
Yeah, they ran it for quite a long time.
you're referring to Dale and Shirley?
Dale and Shirley, and then also Linda and Jerry Macklem
Okay.
were a big part of that too. Yes.
I know that the Orangevale Grange is focused on improving local things. Now, when you go and meet, do you meet in the regional and mentioned you do national also?
So we have the Orangevale Grange is a member of what we call the Capital Valley Pomona Grange, which just reformed last year. We used to have Sacramento Pomona way back when. And the Capital Valley Pomona, I'm president of that one. We've got a couple of counties, so to have a Pomona, you need 3 local granges. So we have just 3 in Sacramento. There's like 1 in Solano. There's 2 in Butte, and I think we have a YOLO Grange as well. So we're working on growing that, and then if enough granges in certain counties grow up, they can, form their own too. So that's the county level. Then we have state level, and then there is a regional level. So we're Western region. That's California, Idaho, Montana, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska and Hawaii, I guess technically, but they're kind of small. And then national from there.
So when you meet, do you exchange ideas and stuff like that? What's the purpose of the meetings when you meet?
So our local meeting is, again, local business meeting, right? On a regional level, at least in the Western region, we call it a leadership conference, and we come together, the different members from the different states, and we do pass information. We learn from each other. It's kind of part fellowship, part what can we learn about making our organization better. On the state level, it's legislative conference mostly. So we talked about resolutions briefly. It might be, I remember one year it was kind of a joke one. Somebody was mad Costco changed their apple pie recipe and they wrote a resolution. So it came to the state floor. We debated it, decided it wasn't worthy of policy, but we talked about it. But there might be water policy, agriculture, different forms of ag, anywhere from fertilizer to crops to the farm bill might come up. And we talk about those and create our policy. And then those things that become national in scope go to the national Grange where they do that again. So our state and national sessions are about setting our legislative policy to give our lobbyists their job for the next year. And you can find the policy for both online. They're available for free. You just look them up. So that's what the state and national fund. There's some workshops and leadership training at those as well, but really the key is legislative focus.
And how much does it cost to get in?
We have a $10 application fee, and I think we just are raising our dues to,
I can't remember.
I think it's going to be something like, I know we just talked about it. See, this is me not being a good prepared person.
That's not my,
I think we're looking at $40 for our to belong. So we pay $16 each to state and national, and then the rest of it goes to the local. I think we're at 40, 45, something like that.
Is it individual membership, or do you also have family membership?
We do have family membership. So there is individual membership. I'm the only one in my immediate family that belongs. But family membership, it consists of, I think it's 2 adults and their dependent children. It doesn't have to necessarily be like a husband and wife. It can be like a parent and a grandparent independence. They can be in a family unit. And the dues for that is basically the cost of 2 adults, regardless of how many kids there are. Once they're old enough to join, they can still, as long as you're still dependent on that parental group, they can be part of the family group. You move out on your own, you have to join by yourself. Yes.
Yeah, do you have an archive? No, I'm not saying Orangevale, I'm saying nationally.
Kind of. So
Where is it located?
in parts of it right now are in Washington, D.C., and parts of it are in Kansas. It depends on which part of it. So the ritual part, we have an officer called the High Priest of Demeter, because it's based on illusion mysteries, right? So he holds like the ritual stuff with him in Kansas. It's in his personal possession. And then our National Grange archive, we just sold our building a year ago, maybe 2 years. it was such a cool building. You could see the White House from the roof of this building, but we sold it because we couldn't afford to maintain it any longer. So that stuff is currently in storage, awaiting a new home until we figure out where it's gonna go. I think some of it might be even in like a member's garage in Massachusetts. Like it's spread out right now, but hopefully soon it will be somewhere permanent. But they found a whole bunch of really old records and things.
And you have to be a member to see it, right?
You have to know how to find it. It's not like in a museum. It's mostly in boxes and crates and just tucked away. It's not really actively touched and engaged with. And then our state Grange records are available downtown. So we own a piece of property. We call it the Triangle. It's at the corners of UV and Stockton. Yep, I think that's right. And we own all 3 buildings on that property. And so our current state Grange records are located there. If you go in there, I think they're there on Tuesdays. There's kind of a little mini museum. They set out some things in glass cases you can look at. And the rest of the records we have are things like old minutes, old membership records. There's boxes and boxes and boxes of pictures because we used to have a newspaper that we published in-house. And the photographer was the editor, so all that stuff is Grange property.
How far back does the newspaper go?
Oh gosh, a while. I would say quite a while. There's like bound books of it that go back so many years. Jay was doing it my entire childhood. I don't know how long before that, so I'd say at least the 70s, but probably quite a bit further. So that stuff is there. It's just tucked in boxes because there's only so much space to display. But there is some archive available. And then Orangevale, we pretty much have a safe. And then whatever you guys have in the museum, you have some pieces of it too. There's a book that my dad wrote that's in the museum that's got a green cover. It's like a tree, an oak tree, and it's just an Orangevale history book. So some of that is Grange records.
Do you have the Fair Oaks stuff?
There might be some of it, yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that might have gone to State Grange as well, though, too.
Okay.
I'd have to check into that. And then also Antelope Grange. So when Antelope shut down, they merged with us as well. So we have some of their stuff and then some of Fair Oaks' stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
You said there's 3 Granges in the Sacramento area?
So we have Orangevale, of course. There's American River, which is in Rancho Cordova, and they're Kilgore Lane and Folsom Boulevard. There's Rio Linda Grange, way out there in the middle of nowhere. I think they're actually on Grange Road, I think is their street. Yeah. And then we are working on Elk Grove Grange. There used to be one there, but it's inactive. And we've got one in Valley Oaks. It's in Galt. It's called Valley Oaks. I think that's it right now. There used to be more, but that's what we're left with today. So in 2014 or so, we call it the hiccup. There was a man who was our state president, and he used his influence to create a division in the organization. And so we're still kind of suffering from that a little bit today. Some members went his way and some stayed with the national organization. And so it was many years of legal battles, and we finally are finished with legal battles, and like the Grange is the Grange, and the charter proves it, and there's no other organization. But he did sway some people away, so it fractured the state Grange. It was California specifically. So there's still some fracture kind of there. We call it hiccup for a reason because we don't want to give it a lot of energy, but it did happen. So that divided the organization pretty big. But we're coming back and we're strong. And I think next to Washington, we're the 2nd largest state Grange membership. Washington grows super fast. I don't know how. It seems like there's more Grangers than there are people in that state. But they grow really fast and they're doing super well. So we're the 2nd and growing really fast.
When do you meet?
We meet on the 3rd Wednesday every month at our Grange Hall. Our meetings are at 7 o'clock. This month, I need to verify with him that he's still coming, but I've got a man from the Department of Food and Ag coming to talk about safety with small animal farms, like if you wanted to get into trading rabbits or chickens or other small guinea pigs are on the list, the things you need to be aware of safety-wise to make sure you don't bring disease into your flock. So he's coming to talk to us. He'll be here at 6. Otherwise, we'll meet at 7. If for some reason he cancels, I'll make sure it's on the website so you can see he's not coming, but please do come check it out. Because we have a lot of small animals in the city here in the Orangevale, and we want you to be safe with your animals. So that's what that conversation is going to be about. Was there another question right before that?
Does Grange show up at county fair and state fair with animals?
Yes, with animals, yes.
I thought I'd
Mhm.
seen them.
So you see the 4-H in their whites with the green vests. You see FFA in blues. And you'll see Grange kids in red vests and denim blue jeans. Yeah, we have the youth fair organization, we call it. And that started in California as well. It's growing east. I did learn that east of the Mississippi doesn't have so much specific FFA and 4-H. It's a lot more individual show, but out on the west, it's much more heavy. We started that at a time when it became evident that there was a lot of unfairness happening in 4-H and FFA clubs. And we had some members who very much wanted it to be more fair and better treatment for the animals. So we created this new organization. It's approved by the fair board. It's all kosher and part of the team, but it's meant to be less political, more care for the animals and taking care of good husbandry for your animals. Other questions? Yes.
What are you doing towards working with the community now? I know there are a couple of projects that you work on every year.
I think our biggest one right now is the Farm and Garden Project, and that's the community farm down behind the hall. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to. It's open to the community. We made it intentionally. You don't have to be a member to be a member of the Grange, to be a member of the garden, but you do have to pay for a plot, just to pay for the plot. But we wanted it to be a way to invite you to want to know more about us without making it compulsory. Come and garden. The mission is to give you access to food you grew yourself and learning. The garden club has a whole bunch of educational workshops they put together. We do our breakfast twice a month on the second Sunday, although that might change a little bit later in the year. Summer seems to be a dry time, so we didn't do summer last year. We've been talking about what that looks like for this year. We've been talking about starting doing Words for Thirds again. We stopped doing that for a few years. So are you familiar with Words for Thirds? It is a project where every third grade in the school district gets a free dictionary. It's theirs, it belongs to that kid, it doesn't belong to the school. So we use donations from our parking lot or other events, because we know Dovewood Court. We rent out space in our parking lot so people can walk to Dovewood, and we use that money towards scholarships and backpacks and Words for Thirds and other community projects. All that money goes to the community in some way. So Words for Thirds is a thing we have done. Backpacks we did do for a while. Breakfast, Farm and Garden, I think those are the big ones right now.
Our big focus is 4-H and FFA. So we have a spaghetti feed, and then the breakfasts that we have every month. That money for the tips goes directly to goes to 4-H, and then we give a percentage of our breakfast funds for FFA. So they go back. So Castle Roba, I think, is the last school in San Juan District that does FFA. They give no money for it. So it's us and other organizations that help to keep that going. So when they have animals that they're maintaining and they're growing, that's through our organization as well as other organizations. I would also have you go to county fair, because these kids put in a ton of work to raise the animals the correct way, give them the right feed, things of that nature, and then they sell them at auction. And so over the last couple of years, we did really well. There was I think an owner of Earl Schweib that really did help promote that, and he has since retired. So a lot of the business community has dropped off at purchasing a lot of the animals. So, but it's very impressive what they do. I think once a month on Wednesdays we have the 4-H kids come, and it is a blast to see these little kids come around And they have their little leadership roles, and they're running the meetings while the parents, and it's a blast just sitting there. I only plan on being there for like 5 or 10 minutes. I end up just giggling, just watching it. It's really fun. So, so we want to just maintain the 4-H as well as they go to the FFA when they get older. It's very impressive. We had the spaghetti dinner about a month ago at the Grange that we sponsored. It was fantastic. We had a great raffle. So all those kids are going to go to, hopefully most of them will go to their
The national
the
session.
nationals in Minnesota.
Is it Minnesota?
I think it's Minnesota. Yeah, I think it's the Twin Cities. I thought.
Might be.
Yeah. So every year they go. So that money all goes to them to. And there's nothing like seeing teens and preteens that know about animals and how to cook and how to raise them, because that group is getting very, very small. We have I think several farms in Orangevale still, White Dog Farms. Brad has a farm. There's a couple of 2 and 1.5 acre farms. It's getting very, very small. A lot of kids aren't really interested in that. So we also give scholarships at the high school level, the monies that we raise, so as the women's club. So especially if they want to become a veterinarian or they want to do something in ag and culture. So we also try to support them too when they go off to university. So
There's also an scholarship out of Sierra College that is antelope money that they gave to the school and they administer it, but it's our scholarship that goes out, and they do all of it, the choosing and everything. What else can I tell you about Grange?
How about having root beer floats instead of breakfast?
We could do a summer ice cream social. Sure, we could talk about that. Do an evening event instead of a morning event. Sure, that could be fun.
we will not be having breakfast on Mother's Day. We're not ever going to do that again. So we're not having breakfast on Mother's Day. That's
It's a
to
whole
let you
other
know,
thing.
For years to come, we will not have breakfast on Mother's Day. That was horrendous. We will never do that again.
Another thing we've talked about organizing is game days, like board game days. Just come and hang out with. I have a collection of board games, hundreds of board games, but there's a few I've left at the Grange Hall. We can bring anything you want to play, from checkers to, I don't know, my favorite is called Settlers of Catan. It's quite an involved game, lots and lots of pieces, but it's really fun. We could do, some Granges do puzzle swaps, where you just have like a library of puzzles. Bring your extras that you're done with and take home different ones, right? We could certainly organize something like that. Anything the community wants, it's what we want to provide. So we just need to know what that is. I don't live in the community any longer. I live in Rancho Cordova, but certainly we want to engage with the community in the way that it needs us to. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to make a comment because you did refer to the museum. Obviously, for everyone, most of you know that we do have the Grange display now that has everything starting with a history from 1910 and a big display of things that the Grange has accomplished. So if you haven't been to the museum to see the Grange display, that's a good place to be, and see what the Grange has done over the years. So.
Any other questions? All right. I'm sorry for not being as prepared as I wanted to be tonight. If I can give you any more information or come back with a better prepared presentation, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know what you need.
All right.